Okay, here we are with another video battle report. This one is actually halfway through. We realized the recording wasn't going on in the first couple of turns, so we're coming in here at about turn 3. It's an 1800 point game with Eldar versus Tau and Eldar. It's just the Eldar player turn at the moment. They went first. Really the main damage that's been done at the moment is you can see a fire prism's dead on the far right there. On the far left there's an exploded wave serpent with some guardians attacking some warp spiders now. Where those jet bikes were just being moved, there was a wraith knight there. It died turn 1 due to some Kroot sniper rounds with a monster hunter thanks to the pen chip on the commander, and then another wave serpent at the back. So really what Scott did initially in terms of spreading out his forces, with the wave serpent spread out, the fire prism spread out, nothing really wrong with that. That was a good solid option. You're not going to give me the chance really to poke at things with ordnance blast from the Riptides. However, he put his Wraith Knight up there and then didn't really take down the main threat for them, which was the Kroot. And also I got Forewarning again, which is the 4-up invulnerable save, and that makes the Kroot very difficult to get rid of. Once that gets up on them, it basically makes them like a 5th edition unit again, where you're paying cheap points for a model that doesn't come with a save and then magically gets a save from cover. Him here obviously is an invulnerable save. And what Scott really should have done in the beginning was use his wave serpents and the dark reapers, which are in the back, sort of half center left there, those 3 models there, because he got not forewarning, the ignores cover with his Farseer, so they could have taken a lot of the Kroot out and then used the wave serpents to take out quite a few of the others, and that would have then really put or made it a lot more difficult for me to remove that Wraith Knight, because I didn't have rending, re-rolling to wound sniper shots from that squad, because the other Kroot squad, which is in the top right there of your screen, was outflanking. They outflanked on the wrong side of the board, unfortunately, so they're just sort of moving along as they are at the moment. So Scott just dropped one of my Riptides as well, as I was talking about what he should have been doing with my Kroot. This game is a bit unusual in that the tournament allowed sort of, I guess, the big guns never tire and, scouring. Or recon, sorry, so now they've allowed elites to score on one of the missions. So I have 2 Riptides and the Crisis Suit unit, so 3 extra scoring units, all of which are quite tough. So he's now trying to limit my scoring opportunities, and also try to, I guess, minimize the damage that he's taking. But in these scenarios, the Riptides really aren't, particularly now that the Wraith Knight's gone, they don't really care that much, because they aren't doing a massive amount of damage to Scott's army. You know, if I can drop a nice pie template on the Guardians when they're all clumped together and have ignores covered, that's great, but for the most part there's wave serpents out there. If I can get close and double tap them with a fusion blaster, great, but my strength 7 with tank hunters is really what's going to be bringing those wave serpents down, and other than the 2 large Guardian squads, there's not a really good target for that large blast template. So from that perspective, Riptides, I guess, would have been quite low on the priority list if I was running this army, and I'd have been focusing much more on trying to remove the Crisis Suits, the broadsides, and then the Kroot. The Kroot really should have fallen that first turn. You can see at the top of the screen there, the Skyray, which is dead. That's what the Reapers shot at first, and they got quite lucky in rolling 3 6s with obviously ignores cover from the Farseer and dropped that. Really, I should have had the Skyray off the table, because I needed that to just plink once on the Crimson Hunter to drop it, but that was really lucky for him to get First Blood. When First Blood, I don't think really was going to come into play here, because there's 5 objectives out there, 6 objectives, sorry, and lots of extra available kill points for him in terms of the Riptide and the Crisis Suit. So when he can bring a lot of firepower to bear, you know, if he got 2 Guardian squads and a Crimson Hunter there, he also got Misfortune, by the way, that could really have hurt the Riptide quite well, or even the Crisis Suit unit. So yeah, I guess in terms of what he was doing first up, trying to get First Blood by dropping the Sky Ray, great, you know, you're getting First Blood, but it's not going to play a significant factor in this game, and I think that's an important thing that people need to have a look at as well when they're talking about First Blood, because, you know, Rhinos are bad now because of First Blood. When does it make a difference? In this game, given that there's 6 objectives, there's extra kill points available in the secondaries when you kill elites. That's just on the table right there and then. That's quite a few victory points that are available. Then you add in Line Breaker and Slay the Warlord as well. Is that one victory point from First Blood really going to make a difference in this game? No. In other games, you know, if there's one objective or there's 2 objectives on each side and similar army types are playing against each other, that's where First Blood can come in and make a difference. So you really need to be looking at where it makes an impact and how it makes an impact to change the game, to identify, should I pursue this? Should I protect against this? I wasn't really protecting against this at all. I was trying as much as possible to have my Kroot sort of behind those walls there, where you can see the Kroot are coming through. There's a doorway, but the others are a line-of-sight blocking wall, to force his Wave Serpents out into the open, where my Crisis Suits could then pick 3 different targets with the commander, pen chip it up. Twin Link ignores cover from the Shashvir with a multi-spectrum sensor suit and command and control mode, and then drop 2 or 3 of those quite reliably on that first turn. So I was looking really for him to be trying to focus to remove them, because if he didn't, the Wraith Knight was dead quite reliably, and that's what happened. You know, ignores cover, re-rolling wounds, even getting to BS5 as well, with marker lights. That's a very likely damage output on the Wraith Knight, and that's why Sniper Kroot, large squads of them, can be really, really hurtful, because even if we don't go ahead with even if we don't go ahead with something like needing to double tap infantry, or needing to get into monstrous creatures, you still have a large squad that puts out 30 to 40 strength 4 shots against not monstrous creatures, infantry. I just screwed that up so you can all have a nice confusion about what's happening. So yeah, the Kroot, for an extra point with that sniper round, really become a very diverse tool, and that is what I like about them a lot. When the monstrous creatures come around, you attach the commander to it, bang, a monstrous creature's dead. If they're not around, you know, you can be precision shotting, as Puppy's gone on about, in terms of picking out models that you want to pick out, which is a very important ability to have. And on top of that, you're also able to just lay into infantry. And then, as well as has been talked about, having the ability to give them marker lives now. 40 strength 4 shots, you know, okay, 40 strength 4 shots at BS5 for an effective 7 points a model, which is 3.5 shots, 3.5 points a shot. Very, very good. Again, they're still weak, not as good in combat, but they're a very efficient and effective shooting unit now. So I guess a little more information about what's actually happening in this battle. So we just had on the right the Tau Commander and Crisis Suits go into the Guardians, try and kill as many of them as possible whilst using target locks to shoot at different things. I didn't want to kill them because I wanted to get in combat and stay with them, because that unit's quite weak at the moment. And I wanted to tie them up so I could move that Riptide up and not be afraid of getting Bladestormed to death with a Misfortune and Doom from the Farseer. So they went into combat, got, you know, decently lucky in terms of not killing too many, so they were able to stay in combat. And then I'm going to hit and run out after this, obviously, assuming we don't wipe one another. So Crimson Hunter coming up is looking now. Scott's, I guess, on the back foot because most of his all of his serpents now are gone. So he's looking to try and remove as many of my troop options as possible. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the firepower left really to do that. I mean, that Riptide, unless he tries and gets all of his blade storming on there, it's not going to work. So he's moving his jet bike units around. Again, those walls block line of sight, so it's actually a really good table for those sort of type of jet bikes. Obviously, I've got my own as well. Here we're doing the combat because there's not much shooting that he can do. He cast Misfortune on the unit, so I had to make quite a few saves, but my drones are apparently very tough, even with a 4-up. So we turned around and a couple of the Guardians got smack dead, and they were wiped so on the fleet, so they're all gone. And now I'm able to push another scoring unit up onto that backfield objective there. So I guess looking at what Scott could have done differently, I think if he'd focused more on those Kroot early, that's where he then would have had more to be able to dictate, because then very likely that Wraith Knight would not have survived. Would have focused a bit more on those Wave Serpents, so hopefully a bit of his firepower would have dropped earlier. But then that Wraith Knight as well can come in, and 2 strength 10 shots, you know, those 2 strength 10 shots. Most people really didn't like the Tyrannifex last edition because it was very expensive. This is less expensive, it's more accurate, and the strength 10 shots are AP2. So I'm not a huge fan of the Wraith Knight, but it's something that you need to be able to deal with, and it's something that when it's around, you have to account for. So if that Wraith Knight had survived, he'd have been able to jump around and start saying, here's strength 10 instant death shots on your broadsides, on your Riptides, and on your commander. And that's what he did shoot. And initially he shot up my commander, which I passed off to a crisis suit, which of course died. But being able to put that pressure on me and remove those firepower units would have been really important. And I don't think it really would have changed the outcome of this game significantly, but it would have made me be very cautious on where I was moving and not let me play with the aggression that I was able to. I mean, we see this crisis unit, it's turn 4, and they're all the way on the other side of the board. That is where units like that, and particularly Riptides, should end up, because they are excellent contesters, they are excellent line breaker models, and a lot of people we see all the time just don't do that. And it's very, very frustrating. People keep going on that Tau's a gunline army. It's not a gunline army. It's a mobile shooting force. They're getting 2 movement phases every turn. They need to be using it. And basically at this point we're sort of doing mop-up in terms of, alright, let's get those Dire Avengers off the back objective, let's get rid of some of these jet bikes, let's get rid of the Crimson Hunter so it doesn't fly around and start annoying me. It did take quite a few hits actually before it went down, which is very impressive for a Crimson Hunter. AV10 was very unfortunate for them. They really should have been AV11 or come with an invulnerable save option, but they didn't, unfortunately. That's what we have. I'm not, again, because of that, I'm not a huge fan of the Crimson Hunter, but it does give something that Serpent armies can quite often struggle with, which is those higher armor and low save models like the Riptides, like the Broadsides. The Bright Lance obviously helps against Land Raiders and their like, but having that Strength 8 option over the Strength 7 from the Wave Serpents helps. I know Fire Prisms are really everyone's sort of go-to. There goes a jet bike unit, running the Kroot up onto another objective. Fire Prisms are a really nice sort of jack-of-all-trades model, but to only rely on that as your high anti-AV or low save models it's not really that reliable. I mean, this army had the Wraith Knight, the Fire Prism, and the Crimson Hunter, which is good, but a lot of other armies we see don't have that, and I think that's something that most people need to have a look at when they're making both Tau and Eldar armies, is how do we deal with those type of models when Torrent of Fire might not always work. I mean, we would love to just be able to roll, oh, you've got 20 Terminators there, here's 200 Strength 4 shots. Sometimes, you know, with the Wraith Knight and that Riptide coming out, where you've got lots of little low strength firepower, they don't care about it. I mean, you've got a 2-up save, 6s to wound, feel no pain as well on quite often, they're 3-up, strength 4 can't even damage, toughness 8, so it's not likely that it's going to go ahead and do too much, so you need to have those other options available there. So yeah, I think where we're getting at with Eldar armies is what are people going to do to really look at helping that with the rest of their army. You know, Crimson Hunters are an okay choice, but they're expensive, they're fragile. Your Fire Dragons or Wraith Knights, they're okay choices, but Wraith Guard are very expensive, particularly if you need to go and take that Spirit Seer as well. Fire Dragons don't really fit into the mold of what the army is trying to do, or what 6th edition is trying to do anymore. They're an elite unit, they're not super efficient anymore, you know, so they're still very point-wise efficient for what you're going to get. I mean, you look at 22 points for basically a toughness 3 Marine with a melter gun, people are going to say, okay, that sounds good. I mean, even a veteran is, an Imperial Guard veteran is a sort of similar points value, so it's not a really bad option, but you need all those troops, so trying to fit them into it as well is a difficult proposition. But we're looking at, with those type of armies, you know, Centurions coming in as well, Riptides, Wraith Knights, what are we going to do for the high toughness, low save models? If we have lots of strength 7, you know, like Serpents can put that out and put wounds on them, that's really good. You know, you're going to get them attrition down sooner or later, but as well having that backup. Imperial armies get plasma. That Tau can have easy access to plasma as well. What are we going to do with Eldar for that? And I think as people work that into their list, those Serpent lists are going to be a bit scarier as well. You know, Bladestorm is great, it can really affect Riptides quite a bit, but you're relying on those 6s, or if you get Doom, bang, fantastic. If you don't, though, you're looking at sort of going, okay, I need a 6. When that starts to become what you're looking for, you have a bit of issues. So back to the battle report, sort of, I guess, just going on a bit about vague things and what we should have been doing, or what the game is about at the moment. Just really mopping up Scott at the moment. He's got 1 jet bike unit left, a Dire Avenger, the Guardian Squad, and his Farseer. Once all is done and dusted, the Farseer sits alive, but everything else, actually, I think when we get to the very end, the Farseer's dead, but everything else is on objective for mine. The jet bike units, the Guardians, get pushed over, so again, I think that first turn of saying, alright, let's try and get first blood, and just taking out a Skyray and a Crisis Suit, rather than damaging a firepower unit significantly, really changed the outcome of this game. You know, I might have gone and said, I can't get any of those enough serpents with the Crisis Suit squad, and still tried to have killed the Wraith Knight, but it would have been a lot less likely, given that I didn't have the sniper rounds. Anyway, so sorry about only giving you the back end of the battle report, because obviously those major impacts were again happening at the beginning. But you also had the Necron battle report to have a look at as well, which is ironically just the first part, and give us some feedback on how these videos are going, and we'll see if we can improve. Ta guys.